Singleton class objects and factories. Okay, we know how to write Singleton class and we know how to create Singleton class object also through factory methods, and we have to know how to implement factories. Factory class responsibility, what it need to do? It need to give other class object. Internally, what it will do? It will hide the object instantiation logic, and finally it will deliver a interface reference. Driver manager class get connection method will return connection interface. It will return an object into connection interface, but the object belongs to implementation vendors. So the same kind of factories if you want to implement. For implementing factories, yesterday we saw two approaches. One is static factory and one is instance factory. And we have one more approach. In Spring they given one interface, factory bean interface. Factory bean interface. Factory bean interface. By implementing this factory bean interface also you can implement a factory class. Take yesterday's same example. Take one interface, car, and put one abstract method, public void drive, and write a factory. By using what? By using this interface you can implement a factory class. In this interface we have three methods. The three methods are get object, the return type is object, and one method is get object to type, get object to type, the return type is class, and one method is singleton, the return type is boolean. These three methods we have in this interface. So by implementing this interface also you can implement a factory class. So for this car, if you want to implement a factory, by using this interface you can implement. How to implement it? Class car factory, class car factory implements factory bean interface. Factory bean interface. We know how to implement static factories and instance factories. In case of static factory, this class it need to have a static method. From that static method we have to return our required car implementation class object. In case of non-static instance factory approach, here we no need to have any static method. By using instance methods itself, you can create a car class implementation object. That object you can return. But here in this case, you need to implement three methods. Public object, get object is one method. Throws exception, and one method is public class get object to type, throws exception. Three methods we have. So this factory main aim is what? It need to return, it need to have capability to return any car class implementation object. It need to have capability to return any car class implementation object. So first car class implementation it need to take as an input. Spring classes, to the Spring classes we can pass inputs by using dependency injection. So let's say if this car interface, if it is having multiple implementations like class RD implements car interface, it need to implement one method here, public void drive method, system.out.println safe drive 100 kilometers per hour. Now if you want to create that RD class object by using this factory, you need to have capability to take input here first. So in case of Spring classes, don't take inputs through methods. If it is through methods, in a static approach, before compiling your class, you need to pass. If it is through dependency injection, from your Spring XML file, you can pass inputs. So here, take one class reference, public class or public string, car name, and put here one setter method. So into this car factory, you can pass your required car name, bean ID, car factory, class name, car factory class. Into this car factory class, we have one dependency, property name, car name. Car name means car implementation class name. The value you can pass RD. Then here we are giving input RD class name. RD is implementation of car. So by taking that name, create here object, class dot to for name, pass car name here, dot new instance. Finally, we have to take that reference in the form of car reference, return C. So whenever you try to call by using getBean method, after loading this XML file into your IOC, whenever you try to call by using getBean method, getBean of, if you pass the CF reference, what you can expect from here? Instead of car factory, you can expect this getObject method return value. So what you can expect here? From factories, you can expect other class implementations. Factory classes designed to create objects of other classes, like driver manager will create connection object. So here this car factory will produce car object. So whenever you try to call by using this CF reference, it will return as a car object. Which car? This implementation car object it will return. And here from this getObject type, just you have to return your return car type. The car type is car.class only. Car.class. And is singleton, do you want to maintain that object as a singleton? If you required it as a singleton, just you need to return boolean true. If you return true from here, then your car object it will make singleton. If you try to request it any number of times also, it will produce only one single car object. If you return here boolean false, then it will return multiple car objects. For each call it will return one car implementation object. So to implement factories in Spring, we have three approaches. One is static factory, one is instance factory, and one is by using factory bean. So to implement a static factory, instance factory, we no need to implement any interfaces. Just in our factory class we need to have a static method, and in our class just we need to have a instance methods in case of first two approaches. But in case of this factory bean approach, you must need to implement this factory bean and you have to override three methods, and you can implement your required factory class by implementing these methods. Okay, yeah. In our JDK, in our JRE, we have one class, calendar class. In this calendar class, we don't have a direct approach to create object. To create calendar class object, we have to use get instance method. So by using the same method, your Spring also need to create calendar class object. So then, how to create that calendar object? Factory methods. You can call that methods like factory methods. In resource bundle class, we have one get bundle method. It is a factory method. And in this calendar class, get instance method. And if you see class dot for name, that for name method is a factory method in class. So this factory methods, by calling this factory methods, how to create objects? Best example I'll show you with calendar. Build path, configure build path, add IOC library. Create a package, beans, and resources. I'll write one simple bean here, test bean. If this class constructor, if it is private, will Spring create object? Spring can create object, right? Spring can access private constructor objects. I mean, by accessing private constructor also Spring can create object. So by using Spring you can create this test class object. It is possible, right? Private constructor classes objects also we can create by using Spring. Yeah. Create a resource Spring XML file and configure here a test class. Bean ID t and class name beans dot test class. Yeah, try to create this class object. By default, while loading itself it will create object, get that object. Yeah, while loading itself it will create object. You can call it also here. Run this. Spring creating private constructor test class object also here. So we have a calendar class. We have a calendar class in our JRE. Calendar C equal to, directly we can't able to access calendar class constructor. Calendar class constructor cannot instantiate the type calendar. Directly we can't able to access it. In calendar class that constructor is private constructor, so you can't able to access it directly. Then how to create this calendar class object? Okay, here test class constructor also directly not accessible, but by using Spring we are creating object, right? In the same way, try to create calendar class object also here. Configure calendar class here, bean class calendar class java dot util dot calendar. Create calendar class object bean ID C. Try to create this calendar class object. Try to access it here. Calendar C. What happens whenever I try to access calendar? Spring throwing instantiation exception. Calendar is an abstract class. Instantiation exception. Here it is saying calendar class is abstract class. Then also you can create object. In calendar class they given one method, one factory method. By using that factory method you can create calendar class object. But by using this direct access you can't. If you want to create this class object, then you have to configure here factory hyphen method, the factory method name in calendar class. It is calendar dot get instance. So configure this method here. The factory method name is get instance. Configure that method name here. Then now try to create object of calendar. Test object created as well as calendar object also created. So which calendar object created? Try to get calendar name, calendar type. How many types we have? Gregorian calendar it is. So to create calendar class object we have to use calendar class factory method. In case if we have any class with factory methods, with the static methods, that class objects also you need to create by using static approach only, static factory approach. So here if this factory class, if it is singleton class, and if you want to create this class object as a singleton object, what we need to do, we have to provide a static method. Through that static method we have to return instance of the same class, test class instance we have to return here, and create reference here, private static test class reference. Here need to check statement, if t equal to null, you have to create one new object, and that object, same object, we have to return to the user. In case if already exist, need to return the same reference. This is what actually singleton. In case of singleton, clonable access also you need to restrict. So how to restrict clonable access? You need to override clone method here. You need to override clone method. From this clone method we need to throw a exception. We need to throw here new clone not support exception. So whenever you try to clone it, it will not support for cloning. So this clone exception also you need to create, then it will restrict cloning support also. So then directly we can't able to instantiate test class object, and cloning also it is not possible in case after creation of object by using static method. The only way to get test class object is get instance, and the get instance method is a type of static method. So by using this get instance method you can create this test class object. To create test class object we have to here use a factory method, factory space factory hyphen method, and the method name is same method, get instance. Now if you try to access by using t reference, it will return as singleton test object. So you can compare here two objects also. Calendar class will not return singleton, but this test class will return singleton. If you try to access calendar, okay, it may return singleton. Both may return here singleton, t1 equal to t2, c1 equal to c2. Both objects are singletons. Singleton objects, here it is returning. Okay. So we have to use factory methods for creating singleton class objects. By using same static factory approach, by using same factory method approach, you can implement factories also. In case of singletons, whenever you try to call by using this t reference, which class object here it is returning? Test only. Whenever you try to call by using c, it is returning calendar object. But if you see factory classes, instead of returning that same class instances, they used to return implementation class objects. Okay, so you can see the difference here. I'll implement a factory. Factory classes. First what we need to create, we have to create a interface first. Create a interface, car interface, and put your required abstract method, public void drive. Make it abstract and write a factory class. First static factory approach, car factory. First approach, static factory approach. Static factory. In case of static factory, we don't need to implement any interface here. Just write a static variable public static string car name and use here static setter method to inject it, and by using that car name create required class object here, finally return it public static, finally what we have to return car object, car factory need to return car object, and write required method name get instance, any method name we can use here, better to throws exceptions, and here create that car object. How to create? Class dot for name, pass car name here dot new instance, and here finally it will return which object? Car object. It need to return that same object reference return to the user. Here we are not writing any singleton logic. We are not writing any singleton logic. By default your Spring will make this object singleton. Spring will make this car factory object singleton, and if car factory if it is singleton, the return instance also will become singleton. So to implement Spring factories, while implementing Spring factory classes, you no need to apply any singleton logic here. But if it is a simple core class, you need to implement singleton. But if you try to create this car factory object through Spring, then you no need to make any singleton here. By default it will make that object as a singleton. That's it. Now my car factory class, it is capable to create any car implementation object. Implement car implementations. Implement car implementations here. RD implements car interface. Drive method must we need to implement here. And implement one more class. Now by using this factory you can create any implementation class object. Create a resource reference, create a XML file and configure here factory class. But in factory class we have one static method, static variable and static setter method we have. To inject values into static setter methods, we have one class, one support class. The class name is method invoking factory bean. So by using that class method invoking factory bean class, by using this method invoking factory bean class, we have to call static method of property static method. The method name is what? The method name is beans dot, the class name is car factory dot setter method set car name, beans dot car factory dot set car name. By using this static method you need to inject arguments here. Property arguments. How many arguments we need to pass? List of arguments we need to pass, but required only one single class, beans dot RD class. Pass your required class name as an argument to car factory class. Which dependency injection we are doing here? Static variable dependency injection. So to inject static variables, compulsory you need to use this approach. Which approach? Method invoking factory bean class must you have to use. By using this factory bean you have to do static variable dependency injections. Okay,